What's up, everybody? Hope you're all well and in high spirits. Today, I want to talk about today's generation. Guys with Edgar haircuts and tight jeans. And why I don't like it. First, I'm not going to comment on how it looks to me because that's really irrelevant what I think about how it looks. If I think it looks funny or cool, etc., that's an opinion, and people should feel free to look any way they want. Even what I'm going to say is an opinion, but it's not based on being judgmental based on you look funny, you don't look like I did. That's not what I'm going to do. What I'm going to talk about is what I think was lost from the generation I looked up to what I see with today's generation. And we'll start with the Edgar haircut. And to a degree, the pelon as well. In the 80's, most of the Chicano raza that I knew, the Mexican Americans, rocking that pachuco flavor. Cholo wasn't really a word back then as much as it is now. But the guys I saw in the 80's, for the most part, combed their hair back, as opposed to the Edgar and the pelon. And everybody wanted to have nice hair, a nice hair going back, looking clean, sharp, well groomed, and that took work. It took discipline to get that hairstyle, because our hair doesn't grow back naturally. And for some people, it might have been a little bit easier. They might have had hair that was easier to train. For others, it might have been a never-ending battle. Looks good 1 second, after walking around a little bit, they're all sticking up. That was more me. And part of it was that I didn't have the discipline to do what I needed to do every day to train my hair. To the best of my understanding, you would be rubbing it. You would put the tres flores, and you would always be rubbing it. You'd have your palm comb, you'd be combing it. At night, you might sleep with a stocking on your head. As it's growing up, you might have a hairnet to kind of hold it in place. Some vatos would wrap a paño around their head and then put a hat flipped up, paño underneath it, and the paño was holding down their hair back. And so it took work, it took effort to achieve that haircut. And I don't think the pelon or the Edgar offers people that opportunity to work on their discipline, to work on doing something every day to achieve something. And so that's what I think was lost. With the skinny jeans, again, I don't care how you look, I'm not going to say it looks this way or it looks that way. I will say that, again, the people I looked up to were always bien planchados. Some would even iron their white t-shirts. And that took time and that took discipline. You had to learn how to iron. You had to take time out of your day to prepare for how you were going to look. It wasn't dependent on, how much money those jeans cost. That, might be bootlegs, might be stolen, or you might have paid full price. But you slide them on, and the brand of those jeans represents you to the community. Look what I can wear. Whereas in the 80's, what represented you was how well groomed you were. Your pants were ironed, your shirt was ironed, your shoes were shined. You took the time to train your hair back and trim your mustache, groom it. I do hear people talk about the past generation based on appearances, and I'll say that I've not seen nary almost none of them be well ironed and groomed. Even as they bash the past generation, I don't see people creased up. Um, and so that's kind of the difference, and what I find to be a loss with the style of today's generation. And that loss is just, again, the opportunity to develop some kind of discipline by having to stick with something to achieve a goal. Because if I don't know how it was for others, but if I was training my hair back and it was starting to get there, and I thought, oh, I'm almost there, and then I slacked off, I would lose it, and it would start going forward again. And so you had to stick with it. And I even think in the 90s, I don't know if folks are going to remember this, but before before colors, and the explosion of everybody wanting to be in a gang, there was that freestyle period for the the raza. And I remember fools would like curl their hair into this pompadour, and they would have a shag in the back and perming it, and tails, and I know dudes that actually went to some heavy duty prisons, were getting off, were ballers out here. And in the 90s, they had a shag with a perm, and Cavaricis, and it was a little period right there where there was a style that was changing, a little Vanilla Ice haircut type thing. And that style, you got instant gratification because the guys were curling their hair and then blow drying it to have that pompadour. You didn't have to train it. You just had to work on it for a little bit with some hairspray and some tools. And again, to me, I think the hardest haircut to achieve, for me anyways, was having a nice smooth head of hair going back, because that required the most discipline. And that's it. That's my my comparison as far as styles between the previous generation and this one. And it's the bad thing for me about the change is just the loss of discipline the style of the 80s provided, with having to take time to iron your clothes, to shine your shoes. Now you wear Jordans, you're cool. Back then, if you didn't have winos or hush puppies and you had some hard leather shoes, you shined them. You wanted those tips glass like, and the rest of the shoe shiny as well. But it was a discipline thing. That's why the military has their folks shine shoes and look pressed and be clean, because it's imparting discipline. And so, I mentioned the Edgar and the pelon, but even the 90s, the pompadours with the long hair in the back, and the vatos who didn't go that route all got flat tops. And the flat top was kind of the same thing as a pelon. The haircut is mostly there, a little bit of gel, push it back, and you're good. That's when I think things started going away from that fashion sense that required a lot of work, more so than money, at least in the community that I was at, because everybody had the same clothes. It wasn't like, oh, I got the platinum bands and you got the regular bands. Everybody had the same clothes, and what separated you was how well you maintained them, how clean you kept them, and how sharp you kept them looking. So that said, much love, have a good one. I hope this didn't offend nobody, because that was not the point. The point wasn't to knock anyone's style, but to look at what was lost from one style to the other insofar as discipline opportunities. Much love.